What's going on, guys? I'm Tim Kelly, joined by Anthony SanFilippo. And Anthony, the Phillies have struck. Dave Dombrowski has acquired a star closer in Jhoan Durán. The Phillies will get him in exchange for Eduardo Tait, catcher who was ranked by most outlets as their number 4 or 5 prospect, and then Mick Abel, who obviously we've seen a little bit of this year. Frankly, I'm shocked at how little the Phillies had to give up for to land a controllable star closer who is not only going to be with you this year, but then has 2 remaining years of arbitration eligibility. I think Tait's going to be a really good catcher, but he's 18 years old. There's a lot that can happen between 18 and reaching the majors. He's at single A. Mick Abel to me is probably like a number 4 starter. I'm floored that they made this trade without. I didn't think they'd give up Andrew Pinner, but I thought to make this type of deal, unquestionably, you were giving up Aiden Miller. So for him not to be in the deal, I am shocked by it.
Yeah, I think it's a good trade for the Phillies. Listen, it's hard to ignore the fact that the 2 prospects that the Phillies gave up were top 100 prospects, right? I mean, we could sit here. We've watched Mick Abel. We've talked to people in the organization who tell us where these guys are in their development, et cetera, et cetera. So to us, this might not seem like as big a deal. To outside evaluators, though, when you get 2 top 100 prospects for a closer, so a guy who's only going to pitch, 50 games, 60 games in a season, I think that's viewed as a more substantial package. So from the Philadelphia perspective, it doesn't seem like a lot, but I bet you everywhere else looks at it and goes, "Oh, Phillies gave up 2 top 100 prospects. That's a lot to pay for a pitcher like Duran." I think it's pretty. I think from that outside perspective, it's probably viewed as a fair trade. We look at it and sit there and go, Phillies might have gotten away with one here, right?
Yeah.
Because they held on to their top 3 guys. So, anyway you slice it, this is a huge move. The Phillies needed a closer. They needed a guy at the back end, and boy, has this guy got some special stuff, man. Like that, he throws the ball hard. He's got that splinker, that the combination of a splitter sinker pitch, right? That's really kind of funky and fun. He doesn't give up a lot. I mean, his ground ball rate is unbelievable. Like he throws 63%, I think it is, or something like that, ground balls. That's insanely good. I think he's going to be just the kind of pitcher that the Phillies needed on that back end.
Yeah, no, without a doubt, the entrance. Obviously, I've seen a ton of people share his video entrance that he did in Minnesota. I would assume something similar like that will come. The Phillies are going to have to upgrade the light show. I don't think that's going to suffice. But like, I guess looking at the return and the trade, I go back to before this season. Most lists, not the top 100 prospects, of the Phillies' top 10 prospects did not include Mick Abel. And it's a great story. He is still young. You have 6 years of control. I totally get it. But I mean, I thought coming into 2 hours ago, when there were reports that the Twins were holding out for Andrew Pinner, I thought maybe they'll back off of that, but it'll be backing off of that for Aiden Miller. If you had told me that they were going to do this type of deal and Tait and Abel were going to be included, I would have thought, oh, they gave up Miller, Tait, and Abel. I for there not to have been more than those 2, I am very surprised. But I wouldn't have thought this trade would have got them Griffin Jacks, who maybe is a better pitcher at times, but does not have the 9th inning pedigree as Duran. And both are under control for 2 more seasons after this, but Duran is a few years younger. Look, there is risk. The risk with Ryan Helsley. Felix Bautista is not going to get traded because of this risk. Any of these guys that throw 100 miles an hour, your body can only do that so many times. So there is that level of risk in making this type of trade. I just thought the Phillies were in such a bad position bullpen-wise that they were going to get backed into a corner and have to trade Aiden Miller. And maybe it's entirely possible the way the Twins evaluate the system, they think like Tait is actually the number 2 prospect in the Phillies system. Maybe that's the calculation because Aiden Miller has not had a great year hitting at a park that is notoriously hitter friendly. Maybe that's the calculation, but you got out of this. The Phillies, by all reporting from Matt Gelb and Jason Stark and a bunch of people, had no interest under any circumstances of giving up Andrew Painter. So they kept him off the table. Justin Crawford, who is still an extremely polarizing prospect, but like Ty Daubert said in his new countdown in Phillies Nation, at a certain point, results matter. And this guy is at a step away from the majors at 21 and is still hitting like 320. So you keep him. Those two could be on your team on Friday, potentially. I don't think Andrew Painter will be. I think there's a real shot Justin Crawford is, but we'll see. And Aiden Miller could be on your team next year. To have kept those three, it's crazy because A, you didn't gut your farm system to make this trade. B, though, you've left yourself the possibility to make another move if that's the route you choose to go. Now, I don't know that there is that guy out there. I love Stephen Kwan. I think Stephen Kwan is worth giving up an Aiden Miller type player for. But if it's not him, I don't know that there's an alternative. And you certainly shouldn't have prospects burn a hole in your pocket. But I thought if they made one of these major trades for a reliever, they wouldn't have ammo left, and they do.
No, that's the best part about it is that they do have ammo left. There are things that they can still do to improve this team before the deadline hits on Thursday at 6 o'clock. And we're recording this just under 24 hours to go before the deadline. And so yeah, the Phillies can still have irons in the fire, and trades can happen here in the next 24 hours that can vastly improve this team to make them be all in for a championship in a year when there is no clear-cut favorites. Like this is a year where I could give you 7 teams in the American League and probably 5 in the National League that I look at and go, yeah, any of these teams could reach the World Series, right? And so like I think that when you try and upgrade enough to be separate yourself from that pack a little bit, you can. And the Phillies were able to get the first thing that they really needed done today, and now they sit there and say they could still be players for. You mentioned Stephen Kwan. They could still be players for Luis Robert. They could still be players for Eugenio Suarez. Like they've been linked to so many players. If you've been following the national guys on social media, they've John Heyman must have linked the Phillies to every available player at the trade deadline. And so maybe they make another move, and yeah, maybe it does cost you one of those guys. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe you hold on to those top three prospects and still add to this team and still have them for later this season or next year. Like Dave Dombrowski could be showing why he has the track record that he has. I know people in Philadelphia have felt a little underwhelmed with him since he got here. He's not been the big time trader that he's been in previous destinations. But now I think, with ownership finally saying, yeah, this is a year we could do this, I think you might see why Dombrowski has that Hall of Fame pedigree. And so we'll see what turns out over the next 23 hours, Tim. But I really expect that there will be at least one more move, if not two. I think that there's also a possibility on a smaller scale of yet another bullpen arm. I know you brought in David Robertson, and now you made the trade for Duran, but I would not be surprised if there's an even smaller scale, fifth, sixth inning middle relief type pitcher, kind of like Tanner Banks was a year ago. I think a deal like that could still surface as well.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I was going to say. Like beyond keeping those three, you kept Gene Cabrera, who is somebody that has been floated in, I think, every trade proposal involving the Phillies. He's still there. And you don't want to give away all these guys. The Phillies do need to start to develop from within at some point. Like that is a reality of this team, especially as the rest of them age. And you can point out Dominic Brown or Kyle Drabeck or all these guys that didn't pan out to be what they were supposed to be. Yeah, that's why the Phillies went 10 years in between playoff appearances. That's not something to be proud of. That's something in a way, you want some of these guys you give up to end up being good players because that means you've developed and cultivated talent. Now, you don't want to give them up like the Mets did with Pete Crow Armstrong and have it become a superstar. That's what you want to try to avoid. I don't know that they're at the risk in this trade. I think Ty could be a really good hitter. So we'll see. But again, 18 years old. Like he's not close to the majors. I think it was already trending towards JT Realmuto being back, but it certainly feels that way after this trade. Yeah, I mean, I think there are still lots of possibilities for the Phillies, and there is nothing wrong with overcorrecting. And you have a chance if they made, you could make like another sixth or seventh inning trade. What if you got another seventh or eighth inning guy though, on top of adding David Robertson? You will have Jose Alvarado back at some point. There's only so many spots in the bullpen. I get that, but there is part of me these last few weeks that's been like, maybe that strategy of, well, one of Luzardo or Ranger Suarez will be in the bullpen. Maybe that's not going to be as sure of a thing as it maybe felt like when it was just a concept on a whiteboard in March.
Yeah, no, I still think that that's going to happen just because of the sheer numbers, right? I mean, but one of the things I guess in your thought process, maybe it's not that you want to rely on that guy so much. You don't want to put them in to such a high leverage spot. So maybe if Luzardo does end up in the bullpen, he is more of a middle relief, not back end type of guy. And so maybe that's kind of how you look at it, right? So I still think that's going to ultimately has to happen. You have all these starting pitchers. Somebody's got to move into the bullpen. So I think that's going to happen for the postseason. But you're right. Maybe it is. Maybe they go out and get another seventh and eighth inning guy, and then use their starters, earlier for matchups that they like. The one thing I will point out, and you mentioned Gene Cabrera. They haven't moved him, and maybe they still do. The one thing that I thought all along with the draft a couple weeks ago, that when they were drafting all of those collegiate pitchers, that they were restocking the farm because they planned on trading pitchers that they currently have. And so that's why I think when you look at it, you say, well, you can't trade everybody. Well, you can trade maybe more than you did before because you overloaded on pitchers that are closer to major league ready because just of their age, how developed they are, pitching in the NCAA, whatever. They're not high school kids that need a little bit of time. So I do think that that flexibility also still exists, where a guy like Cabrera or any of the other pitchers that have been pitching in the organization since the start of the year could get moved here for further reinforcements.
Yeah, and I think some of those arms, they are the most volatile. Like there's a chance some of them don't pan out, which is why teams are more willing to trade them. But they're also potentially the quickest risers too. Like maybe Gage Wood isn't going to be in the picture this year, but next year certainly he could be. So you might end up with at the end of this, you have your three prospects, and then there's a steep drop off. But a year from now, you might think completely differently about the system because other guys come up. You also think completely differently if there's a new flag in center field next year too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the aesthetics of the stadium matter more, and that championship. Hey, what's the saying? The flags fly forever, right? So,
Well, they do unless they put an ad there, which is the flags might get moved to another part of the stadium in a few years.
or the flags are going to have ads on them soon. The way things are going.
The flags are going to go the way of the analog clock. Anyway, before I
by the way, Tim, I gotta just put it just for every time we do one of these, we always try to be in unique locations. And even when I've done them with you through Zoom like this, you've always been in unique locations. Like that one time in your Airbnb with the ivy on the wall. Right now, you look like you're in a proof of life video.
Yeah, I do look like I'm in like Severance or something where like white walls and stuff. So I did move recently, and this is like a conference building in my room, and I haven't gotten, or in my building,
So
and I haven't gotten a better setup.
I don't know if you can see it yet, but there is a reflection in the TV behind
Yeah.
you that looks like the windows on the far side of the room. It almost looks like there's a couple of them that are kind of broken, and like, that's why I
No,
say
they're
it's like
not.
they're not, but it kind of looks like it, right?
Yeah, there's like a courtyard area. I'm looking out at like in front of me. It looks really nice, but then it looks kind of ominous in the view
Yes,
behind.
it does. That's why it's a proof of
So,
life video. Anyway,
in
go
any
ahead.
event, before we miss another trade, we're going to sign off for now. Check out on Pattison. I would imagine we'll be back here in the next 24 hours talking about this, but check us out on Pattison, and we'll talk to you guys next time.